Welcome to Vortex Garage. You know, we've got a lot of projects that we've been working on here in the shop. And I've definitely noticed that when we do a big job that has a lot of video to edit, well, it can take a lot of time to get that up on YouTube. So I thought about it a little bit and I decided, well, maybe it's time we have a different type of segment. Something where we can give a little bit more routine updates on things we've been working on. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to start on what will hopefully be weekly updates here at the Vortex Garage. The idea, we'll talk about some of the projects we're working on, give updates on some long-term items we've been doing, maybe talk about tools or various tech tips, things of that nature. The whole idea is sort of keep it simple, impromptu, and off the cuff. So let's go ahead and get things started today. Let's talk about what we got right here. All right, so this is actually relatively new, so we can give a quick update here. This is a 94 Camaro Z28. So this has the LT1 V8 backed by a 4L60E automatic. Now this particular car does have about 150,000 miles, and it's in pretty good shape, but it does need to be gone through, make sure that it's sound mechanically, and it really needs more cosmetic stuff than anything. From an engine perspective, it's running pretty good. I do know that it's had a relatively recent water pump, and along with that, the OptiSpark distributor done. At the same time, I know the intake manifold was pulled off and resealed to cure an oil leak that it had in the back. So it starts right up, it runs good, but really, if we take a close look at it, you're gonna see it really needs a lot of cleanup work. It really just needs a lot of detailing, and the paint's really not that great on it. It's got some scratches, scuffs. It's got a dent here in the front fender, and it's sat out for a bit and under a tree and gotten some nasty stuff on it. So from a mechanical perspective, the engine's in great shape. We're going to go over the driveline and suspension and make sure that it's good, but it seems like everything's sound on it. From a cosmetic perspective, that's where it really needs a lot more help. The paint is just kind of worn out. It's got some peel and clear coat in areas. It's got some scratches, some dings, but luckily nothing in the way of rust. So it's a sound car, it's a solid car, and it's a good runner. In the interior, again, it needs some cosmetic work. It's not trashed, but it's definitely showing the age. The carpets could probably stand to be replaced. The seats need to be cleaned and possibly recovered or replaced. And the dash pad's cracked. But the rest of it, it's all there, it's all put together. It hasn't been cut up, hacked up, ruined, wrecked, or anything like that. So this is actually a pretty solid car. So we're going to be taking a look at this one as we wind down with winter and get into the spring, get it cleaned up and back on the road. Okay, and now for the update that everyone's been waiting for, the Spitfire. I know I've gotten a lot of requests on a little bit of updates on progress on how we've done here, and I had to put a cover on it because I just don't want to shock the internet with how far we've gone with this project. So everyone prepare. The Spitfire. Now, to the casual observer, it may appear that there hasn't been a darn thing done to this car. And I'm here to tell you that you're partially right. However, not 100% right, because this car, this very car right here, used to be over there. That's right. We moved it from over there to over here. So you can't say that nothing's been done to it. So in all seriousness, and I'm just joking, but in all seriousness, this has been moved. This is actually the permanent location that we're going to designate in the Vortex here to go ahead and do the restoration work on it. To be fair though, we haven't really had a lot of time to dig into it and tear it apart. We've just had a lot of other projects come up, a lot of other work that needed to get done, especially with winter coming. You'll see a lot of that being posted, be it the entire rebuild of the bottom end of the Mountaineer, the suspension, the four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive system. The Jeeps with the drive shaft special that'll be posted soon. A lot of snow preparation occurred that really kind of put this on the back burner. But not 100%. There are some things we're going to update you on. We've been spending a lot of time, not necessarily on this particular vehicle, but collecting parts from the Mark II Spitfire that we have that's basically a parts car. Now, a lot of those parts were sitting out and needed to be put in storage and taken out of the weather, and that's what we've really been focusing on. In fact, you may be able to see the Mark II Spitfire's engine is back here. It's on a stand and wrapped in plastic. So that's a spare engine that we have to go through. Okay, so a little bit more of the update that we're going to do. We're going to take you and show you some of the parts from that Mark II parts car. And one of the big things we'll show you is the frame, and we'll talk about that when we get up there and look at it. Okay, so this is the frame. This is from that Mark II Spitfire parts car. And as you can see, you might think, well, it's a parts car, it's going to be pretty nasty. Well, this particular frame was checked out. Everything's nice and straight on it. It's clean, there was no rust, and it was sandblasted and 2 coats of powder coat put on it. So as you can see, it's been sitting for a number of years, so there is a bit of dust on it, and we're going to clean it off, but sort of wiped it off a little bit to show here. It's got a really nice coating of powder coat on it. This is going to be a great foundation for us to build on, and this is the frame that we're going to use. So we'll be able to use the Mark III there as we restore it. We'll be able to keep that frame existing. We don't have to totally blow it apart to do a frame off. We can build up on this frame. So that actually puts us in a good spot. Like I was saying before, as we're taking parts off the other frame, cleaning them up, restoring them, we have this frame to bolt it to. We've still got the other one in there to use as a factory reference. So that's pretty much the plan. Now, as for the Mark II, I mentioned that it was a parts car and it was pretty ratty, and as you can see, well, this is essentially what we got. So here's, of course, the hood. As you can see, it's a little different than that Mark III hood. So the hood itself is in pretty good shape. It did have a little bit of nose damage. There's actually some Bondo under here, so we're going to have to do a little bit of metal work on it. But the rest of the hood, aside from this surface rust, where it had been sanded and primered, it's actually in pretty good shape, so I don't anticipate a whole lot of problems with it, but it is going to need some metal work, and it is going to need definitely a lot of cleanup and sanding. As you can see here, you've got a little bit of dent here, so it's not going to be trivial, but it's definitely not too ratted out and not too gone. The actual body tub of this car was pretty well shot. This thing's got some life into it, and this hood can be restored. Okay, and we've got the doors off the Mark II, and these things are really ratty. I mean, they're not really something we're going to probably use. They've got dings in the door skins, a lot of Bondo and stuff like that. The frames of them are pretty good, and they do have good glass, so I suppose we could use that. All the mechanisms are there. So they might just be able to be reskinned and used, but for right now, we're not throwing them away, but I'm not sure if I'm necessarily going to be using them right away or not. We've got a couple boxes of spare parts. We've got the radiator out of the Mark II. We've got the transmission tunnel. And again, we've got various bits and spares that came with the car throughout the years. Over here, we've got a few more powder-coated parts. These are the go on the front of the frame. This is where the springs and front suspension hang off of. We've got a sway bar here. And here we've got some items that were done in silver. Like there's a coil spring. So we've got some nice clean parts suspension-wise. They're just going to need bushings and a full rebuild to get a rolling chassis. So basically, like I said, this thing's pretty much in boxes, but we've spent some time just sort of getting the parts here and getting everything in storage, under cover, and protected. And we're going to be in pretty good shape as we start to pull apart that other one. So this is the trans out of that Mark II. So we've got another transmission. Here's another box with some various spares and bits. We've got brake drums, we've got some of the lights, we've got the headlight buckets, e-brake handle. A lot of it's probably junky and really ratty, but we've got some good stuff in here. And the good news is a lot of the bags are tagged with what's in them, so that's going to make things a little easier. Okay, we've got the starter motor and the clutch and flywheel, and we'll go and show you the engine for the Mark II. We've actually got that sitting right behind the Mark III Spitfire. And we've got it on the stand and wrapped up, so we'll kind of show you that real quick. Okay, so here on this engine stand, this is actually the engine out of that Mark II, and it's got the generator still on it. It's a little hard to see because we've got it wrapped up a couple times just to keep the dust off it. Then we're going to have to go through this when it's time and see what we got, but I just wanted to get it in here. We did clean it off, we degreased it, let it dry really nice, and then wrapped it up and so we could store it indoors and keep it nice. So that's here as well, so this is a spare motor for us to work with. And again, of course, we've got our Mark III sitting here, pretty much where we left it. Okay, here's another thing you might have seen in the shop here. This is an 83, I believe, Yamaha Virago. It's a 920, and it needs the carbs redone on it, and it's got a problem with the starter Bendix. And it's one of those things where I'm just not super interested in getting it running, so I haven't found the time to work on it. But it's on the list, and at some point in time, we'll be working on it. On the other side of the Spitfire, this is one of the reasons we haven't necessarily worked on the Spitfire a lot. This is CV axle mountain, as we like to call it, because we've done CV axles on quite a number of projects lately. Got the Mountaineer ones, we did one on a 4Runner, we've got a couple Jeep axles under there as well. Now, I had made some references prior to some jobs that we've had going on here in the Vortex Garage, and one of those has been that Mountaineer project. I've got a lot of videos that I've got to update and edit and get uploaded for that, because we basically pulled apart the whole bottom end, the whole suspension, the all-wheel drive system, the rear differential. A lot of stuff was pulled out and fixed on that vehicle. And it's been running pretty good. Well, as we got it back on the road, and of course we did a tune-up on it, we did spark plugs, all that. Well, as we got it back on the road, we started to have a couple misfires in it. So I elected to go ahead and replace the coil packs. So I took a little bit of video as we swapped out the stock coil packs for a set of MSDs. So we're going to cut over and show you that really quick. All right, so just a quick project update on our Mountaineer, and we've done a ton of work on this truck, and I know right now we've got a couple videos up, mainly the transfer case versus coupling, the chain, the removal and installation, and the U-joints in the drive shaft. But we've done a lot more that we're working on editing video. For instance, the steering system pretty much all replaced. The wheel bearings all around, front and rear suspension rebuilds, and unfortunately, we found we had to replace the rear differential. We also did a tune-up on the engine. Well, since then, we've been kind of driving it around, trying to flush out any more gremlins, and unfortunately, we did develop a misfire in the number 5 cylinder. So diagnosed it as a bad coil pack, went ahead and got a Motorcraft one and replaced it. A little later after that, now the number 8 one's got a code. So I think at this point, I don't really want to be chasing down faulty coils here and there. They're old, they're worn out. So what we're going to do today, we're going to swap out all 8 coils for a set of MSD coils. Now there is a chance that we could actually be chasing another issue. Even though the number 5 coil was bad, I haven't yet tested or checked the number 8 coil. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace them because I don't want to mess with them. All right, so here's the coils we elected to go for, and we went with the MSDs, mainly because we get a set of 8, and the price is really good in comparison to buying a set of the OEM Motorcrafts. And for that, the quality is also pretty good on the MSDs. A lot of the aftermarket coils, the cheap aftermarket ones, the quality just isn't there. These have a pretty good set of reviews. They've been around for a long time, so I'm pretty confident in putting these in and not going OEM, and hopefully I don't regret that. At any rate, here's what you get. You do get a set of 8 coils. If you're in California, you get your carb sticker, some installation instructions, and here's the actual coils themselves. And they certainly look to be decent enough quality. So this set will run you anywhere from about $150 to $175, depending on where you find it and if you get it on sale. Whereas buying the 8 OEM Motorcraft coils, they're about 50 bucks a pop, maybe less if you find them in the right spot. So you're looking $350 to $400. So that's why we elected to go with these, and we're going to have all new coils. Since I did replace the number 5 with an OEM Motorcraft, I'm going to toss that in the glove box, and we'll keep it just in case one of these is defective or fails in the short term. I'll be able to swap it out even on the road. So swapping these in is pretty easy. And we've got a video where we went ahead and replaced the spark plugs, and we pulled out all the coils. So the procedures are going to be just the same. And well, let's head over to the truck and do it. All right, so, well, it's pretty easy. We just went ahead and pulled off our main engine cover, our intake tube, so we can get the ones on this side. And I've just gone through and disconnected all the electrical connectors off of those. Now we'll go ahead and do these. The electrical connectors sit so close to the coils that you're pretty much not going to get mixed up on where they go. If you're really concerned about it, go ahead and label them or do them one at a time, even better. But again, they really just sort of fall right where they need to be. So we'll just get all those disconnected, and then we'll come around and do the 7mm bolts and start taking the coil packs out. Start getting them loose. Now, if I remember correctly, on these Ford engines, the modulars, this on the passenger side should be cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the fact that we've got a number 5 and a number 8, that is the only thing that leads me to believe we might have something else going on, like a cam sensor. But you know, these are pretty old anyway, and well, we're not going to throw them out. We're going to toss them in the box as we replace these. So anyway, here's one of our OE coils. This is one of the originals. Here's the MSD for comparison. So very similar. Alright, go ahead and slide the new one in. Now, we had prior gone in and blown out all the spark plug holes and cleaned this engine pretty good. So I'm not as worried as I was the first time around about debris. Plus we're not pulling the spark plugs out. But still, these engines are notorious where the spark plug well goes. It's pretty much straight down. And so it's pretty easy to get stuff in there. And so it's pretty easy to get debris down in there. And then we'll have to look the torques back up on these. Make sure we get them right and then we don't crack anything. All right, now to the driver's side. Now, of course, if you hadn't noticed already, we disconnected the ground on our battery. That way we wouldn't have any problems. So this is number 5, and this is the one we had just recently replaced with a Motorcraft unit. So we're going to save this one, and we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep it in the glove box in case we need it. We'll have a nice brand new Motorcraft one just in case. Okay, so this is number 8, and this is the one we suspected of having the misfire. I'm just seeing some oil back here. It's not down in the cylinder, and this is clean. But up here it looks like we got something. I wonder if we got a leaking valve cover. Let's get All right, after torquing the retainer bolts down, I'll just come in, hook up all your electrical connections. We're all done. We just got to put our intake tube back on and the cover, and then we're all set. Don't forget to hook all your hoses back up. And this one, we took it straight out of the intake tube with this kind of hard line that goes to the other valve cover. For this one, we took out over here. And we just sort of go through it and double check that everything is put where it needs to go. All right, let's see if it starts up. Okay, well that's the job done. So we're going to continue driving on it. I'll let you know how it goes. If we've got any more misfires, that means we might have something else going on. And if we've got any problems with those MSD coils, I'll let you know. But again, it looked to be pretty good quality. They went in. Installation was definitely a snap, especially since we had them all out recently when we did new spark plugs. All right, so I think we've pretty much run out of time for this week's update here in the Vortex Garage. Some upcoming videos that hopefully will be posted soon is going to be our WJ drive shaft special. It's going to be a fairly long video, but it's going to really cover a lot of the different types of drive shafts you're going to find in a WJ Grand Cherokee and how to rebuild them. That includes both the double cardan front drive shaft and the Arzeppa style. Also upcoming, we've got a lot of stuff from our Mountaineer project. So again, we had a little bit of it today. There's going to be a lot more coming from that here in the Vortex Garage. Next week, I think we'll maybe tackle, of course, our project updates, but also maybe talk a little bit about ODB2 scanners and some of the help that you can get by data logging something if you're having trouble finding a fault. All right, so once again, we're pretty much out of time. So I'd like to thank you for joining us here at the Vortex Garage, and we look forward to having you again next week for the next update where we go over some more of our projects.